My major was political science. Yeah, so I'll end up, yeah, I'll go ahead and give you more of that. I thought I was gonna be a prosecuting attorney. That's what I wanted to be. I was gonna go to law school because I figured that, we talk a lot about justice and a lot of people go to criminal justice. And I was like, well, we need more people like us on that side, on the prosecuting side, because that's where the injustices have the most power, and that's where it takes place. So that was the goal. And then I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to do that. I did one day of law school and I dropped out, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to write. I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna read the dedication to one of my. I think this is like my third or fourth book. I'm gonna read the dedication of this one because it does a good job of explaining who I am, and then from there, and I'll go ahead and launch off and talk about all of the teams. So dedication. I dedicate this book to the 3-year-old me grinning at whoever stood behind the camera telling me to say cheese. To the 5-year-old me who escaped her grandparents at the airport and hid out in the car in hopes that they just turn around and drive us all back home. The 6-year-old me who got a whipping for using a word that she didn't know the meaning of. The 9-year-old me who saved all of her lunch money to buy a diary with the key from the school's book fair. The 10-year-old me who crushed on girls way before boys entered her peripheral. The 11-year-old me who believed her grandmother's promise that her cancer had turned into ashes. The 12-year-old me who wondered if it was possible to be without a father's love, even though she had 2 of them. The 13-year-old me who questioned if what happened could be considered rape since she had run away from home. The 14-year-old me who wrote letters from youth detention centers. The 15-year-old me who tried her damnedest to be a good Christian. The 16-year-old me who got her first abortion. The 17-year-old me who delivered her first child. The 18-year-old me who experienced her first real heartbreak. The 19-year-old me who was so full of pride that she worked 3 jobs and went to school instead of asking for help. The 20-year-old me who smoked herself from a size 6 to a size 0. The 21-year-old me who had her second child and decided to give Christianity another shot. The 22-year-old me who exchanged being a child of God for being her own woman. The 23-year-old me who began her journey of self-love. The 24-year-old me who got married to feel validated. The 26-year-old me who got her second abortion. The 27-year-old me who has finally embraced the fullness of her spirituality, sensuality, and herself. I dedicate this book to the woman I am now and the woman I'll become. I love you all, and not for a second am I ashamed of you. So, thank you. I always suggest that people write letters to their younger selves, try to think back to them ages, and because all of that stuff add up to the totality of who you are and, what you're doing, what impact you're making. So I said in here, at age 14, I was writing letters from youth detention centers. That's actually when I thought back, I was being interviewed by somebody, I don't remember who, and they were asking me when was the first time I actually wrote a story. And I didn't even think about it until that time when they asked me that, but I was like, oh, it was when I was 14. Y'all know what a youth detention is? Youth detention center? It's a kid jail. So they try to make it sound cute, like it's something different, but it's jail. It's juvie, yeah, they call it juvie, but it's jail. So I was in there, and we had this small library, and it had some books in there, but it's I'm an avid reader, and I never used to read what was on my school reading list. I would be on my mother's bookshelf reading her books, because they were just way more fascinating to me. And so when I was in the YDC, I read all the books in the library. There was nothing else to read, so I started writing. I wrote my own story. About my own life. I just changed some names, and I changed the city, and then and it was on loose leaf paper, numbered 1 to all the way at the corner, stapled it, it was folded down actually. And I passed it around, and everybody read it, and they loved it. The other girls in there, the guards, everybody loved it. And then I had girls starting to ask me, can you write my story too? And I'm like, first of all, how you know that was about me? But second of all, yes, I will. And so I started writing their stories too. And I had all of these stories just circulating around the YDC, and I was just, I don't know, I don't think I really thought about it then, but now when I think about it, I was like, that was pretty cool, Trelani. And so then fast forward, and like I said, I was still doing a lot of journaling. So I journaled for a long time. I had diaries, and I would just write my thoughts. I cut that out around 12 years old. I remember I came home one day, and my mom was reading my journal. Well, it was on my bed, and then I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and it was gone. And she had went in, and I heard her door shut, and for some reason I just knew she was in there reading, and I heard her crying. That cut that out. I ain't started back journaling until I was grown. First time writing a book, so between 2008 to 2012 or 13, I was a 911 dispatcher here in Savannah. So I used to answer the calls, 911, what's your emergency? That's not an emergency call, not an emergency line. Or sometimes it would be a real emergency, but we would alternate shifts. So I was working on an overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Any of y'all ever worked overnight before? Yeah. That thing ain't no joke. If you're not like, I mean, I am tight. But anyway, so to stay up, I would read, because it would be slow a lot of nights. Fun fact, full moons are a real thing. Like when it's a full moon outside, crime rate is high. You get more 911 calls. It's not myth. So this was not a full moon night. It was very dead. It must have been a new moon. I don't know. It was very slow. So I was just reading, and I think I had read a whole book in one day, and that one night, and I started another one. It was a friend of mine beside me. We worked together, and I said, you know, these books are so sorry. Like I feel like I could do it. And she was like, I know, because we would just swap books if we read a good one, but I hadn't read a good one in like 6 or 7 books. So we were like, okay, we're gonna do it. And so we started trying to write a story. Then I'm on Google and trying to find a writer's conference or something, anywhere where I can learn to see what I'm doing, because I don't know what I'm doing. And even when I finished the book, like, what do I do next? I have no idea. So I found one. It was called the Black Writers Reunion and Conference. It was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I told my friend about it, and she was like, we're going. If you've ever tried to plan a trip with a friend, you might know that a lot of times it won't pan out. So she waited till about a week before the trip to let me know that she can't make it. And so I was like, oh, I ain't gonna go either, because I couldn't afford financially to go by myself. But then, I don't know, it just stuck with me, and I just had to get there for some reason. So I reached out to the person over it, and which hopefully this inspires you too, to don't let money be an obstacle if you're not doing what you need to do. I reached out to the administrator, the person facilitating the conference, and I said, hey, I'm working on my first book. I really need to be there. I can't afford the whole rate. I can't afford the hotel. Like, I don't know. Like, this is what I got. And she said, okay, fill out that application, and we're going to make it work. Get here, and you can share a room with me. I got the penthouse suite at the top, whatever. Yes, ma'am. And I got there, and I didn't have to pay for my hotel. I just had to pay for my gas to get there, and that was it. She didn't charge me for the rate. It was high-level names at this event, and we're all in one space. Like I'm sitting with authors. I can't even remember their names right now. Michelle Denise, and who else was there? Sonia Sanchez was there. There was a few, but we're all in like the same spaces. It wasn't like a class system, like the better ones are up here. No, we're all just together, and we were writing together. We were talking about writing challenges. I got to ask questions to people, and about 4 or 5 months after that conference, I finished my first book and published it, and that was a novel called What the Devil Meant for Bad. So I was writing novels for a really, really long time while working there too. So one of my former SSU professors reached out to me, and she was like, hey, do you want to work here? And I was like, yeah, get me out of here. Like, I do not like this job, these swinging shifts, get me out of here. So she called me up, and I started working with her down at the QEP office. I don't know if they still have that here. Okay, the Quality Enhancement Plan. Yeah, okay, the focus changed every 5 years. And that was equally stressful, because that was my first time it wasn't a nonprofit, but it acted like one. So it's like we had to rely on grants and permission every 5 years. Like, all right, we survived this 5 years, do we have another one? I can't do that. So I was like, you know what? I did my 2 years, and I was like, I'm finished. But while I was here, I got to work with students and with faculty. I got to have my own workshops and design them and say what we're gonna write about. Like, you wanna learn how to write a story, I'm gonna teach you how to write a story. You need to work on your grammar. Like, I would have all these workshops. Love that it did that. But then I was ready to start writing for myself, because around that time too, that's when I dropped out of law school as well, when I was working at Savannah State. Because while I was here too, I had already wrote that first book, if you remember, and I was like, you know what, I think I just want to write. A friend of mine, she's actually from Miami, but she said, SCAD has a writing program, you should totally do it. First of all, I don't think I'm gonna get in, and second of all, I know I can't afford it. Once again, like I said, don't let money stop you from nothing. I reached out to the people, I sent my application, they had like, what is it called? The person who kind of helps you get admissions counselor. And I said, look, I don't have no money. I don't know, but I wanna come here, and I sent my writing samples and everything like that, but that's nothing, you gotta be good at what you do, don't be half-stepping. So I sent my writing samples, and it was good and everything, and they were like, okay, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Look, I got kids, I'm here, I'm black, I'm poor, what you got for me? So they gave me all kind of scholarships to apply for, and I got them. So I didn't have to pay for that. That was a blessing. Later on I did, but getting into the door like that first year, I didn't have to pay for anything. So that was another testimony of how, money ain't an issue. So got to SCAD, studied there. While studying at SCAD, that's when I started working on this book. I wasn't working on it for SCAD, I was doing it on my own. What had happened was, I got another friend, her name is Michelle, she was down in Miami. She's really into history, and she and I both, but it was like a casual, just passing thing. Hey, you watch this documentary, read this book, da 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 da. But she was like, hey, so I see like where you're at in Savannah, right along like Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, y'all have like a lot of former plantations there. I'm gonna come up there, do you wanna just like hit some up? Not really, but I was like, yeah, it's just a trip, but nothing about that excited me. But we did it, and I'm so grateful that I went, because it gave me an opportunity to compare a lot of things. It gave me an opportunity for one, to learn a lot more about enslavement, which I didn't know. Well, I mean, I knew the basics of it. Well, I think all of us know, but that gave me an opportunity to learn, actually it's some more complexities in here, and the way that they were ran is a lot differently. The way that the modern workplace system is designed now is based off of the system of how plantations were set up. A lot of times, just a quick fact that I didn't know about, like the plantation owner wouldn't even live there. Like they might live in England, they might live in New York, like somewhere up north away. They'd come back down for during the winters when it was cold up there. They would come here, but they would get reports while they were up there. It didn't have names or stories like that. It would just say who you were, how much what you cost, and how much you bring in, your productivity. And so they would get productivity reports. And now just fast forward, that's what's used in workplaces today. So it's like you aren't seen as people, and what you're going through is like, what are you doing for us? How much are you bringing in the door? So it's kind of that system started there. Well, another thing, when we would leave these plantations, they would have these gift stores. So we would go in the gift shop, and they would have these books. They were called slave narratives. They costed there, because anybody can do it. I learned this while working at the Library of Congress. So what had happened was, around the 1930s, late 30s, 40s, so the country was coming out of the Great Depression. So it was like people struggling, not working. The federal government started the New Deal. The New Deal was a way of just like putting federal dollars into people's pockets to get them back working. So that's where you had, construction projects, building railroads, the highway system, all of that. You also had one for the Federal Writers Project. And so that got teachers, librarians, artists, everybody like in that world back working again. So the project was to go out to former plantations and interview formerly enslaved persons. You might notice I don't say slaves, because slaves is like, they were enslaved. That was a condition. That's not who they were. That was a condition, put on them. So they had to interview formerly enslaved persons. So now, out of all those interviews that they gathered, they were transcribed, they were sent off to the Library of Congress. Anybody can go and pull some out, put them together, and you can sell them. You ain't do no writing. I mean, it's federal property, and you can do that, because it's called editing. Once you pull them out and put them together, you're the editor of that particular book. So anyways, I was buying those books from the gift shop, going home, reading them, and I was addicted to them, because now I got to read. I thought if I wanted to read about like a formerly enslaved person, about what they had to say, it was gonna be a few names. Frederick Douglass, who else? Harriet Tubman, who else we hear about? Booker T. Washington. Yeah, it's just a few names that we were gonna read about. No, this was like tens of thousands of interviews from just everybody. And then you had some of them who thought that freedom wasn't a good thing, that we were better off. I mean, you had all of these different perspectives, and that just blew my mind. So I remember it was one night, and I was up reading, I was like, who's collecting like our elder stories today? And I was like, because the same way, like, what they're saying is blowing my mind, and it would include like recipes and how they did things. And I was like, what, our elders, if I fast forward about 50 or 100 years from now, somebody will wonder, how are they getting by in the 1920s and 1930s and 1940s? So I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. And I started out. I mean, I didn't have no roadmap, none of that. I didn't even know what that work was called. I just put it on Facebook. I was like, if anybody got a grandmama, granddaddy, somebody, an elder in your life, and they are over the age of about 70, I wanna interview them. So, I would get some answers, and then from them, some of them, the elders, would tell me about other people I needed to talk to. And I talked to all of them, and, by the time I finished the book, of course, I had to end up turning some people away. And I ended up having to narrow down the subject matter in terms of, I'm gonna do 80 and up, because, it's a lot of 7-year-olds. 80s, y'all a little more fragile, y'all about to roll out of here in a minute, so I'm gonna go ahead and interview y'all. I did that, and I would ask them questions like, where were you born? So most of them were born at home. I think out of 21 elders, only one of them was born in a hospital. All of them were born at home. I would ask them stuff like, well, when you were growing up, what were your chores like? And so it ain't nothing like our chores. Like, what were our chores growing up? Vacuuming, doing the dishes, loading the dishwasher, making your bed. No, like they would have to wake up in the morning, go feed the animals in the yard, go water maybe the okra out there. What else? Get on the baseboards and clean everything. I mean, heavy duty cleaning, and I would wonder, like, and so then, of course, naturally, curiosity kick in. Curiosity would get